If anybody's going to charge, we'll charge. We're the one that has we have total control. You know, we have a thing called a blockade with his Navy. And that Navy is, they call it a wall of steel, the United States wall of steel. And no, there's not going to be charging. We're not talking about charging at all. There won't be charging.
All right, there you have it, straight from the president. We welcome back to the show, of course, General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst, my mentor on all these matters. So, General Keane, I don't know. I mean, the stock market would like the Strait of Hormuz to be reopened. I would like it to be reopened. Everyone would like it to be. But the news reporting suggests that it's a deal between Iran and Oman, and it'll have service fees or tolls, and basically they're going to control it, not us. It's not the it's not the free navigation that Mr. Trump is talking about, General Keane. So I wonder if you had any thoughts on this. People, Scott Bessent today, as you know, said it's either today or tomorrow the deal will be completed. What do you make of it, sir?
Yeah, well, a couple things. Number one, I think the reason why the Iranians dialed Donald Trump's number here was the obvious threat that we were dead serious about going back into major combat operations. They got that message. And what are they really trying to do here? One, they've already succeeded. They stopped the major combat operations from taking place. That's what they did on April the 7th when we went to a ceasefire. And again, remember, the issue then was the Straits of Hormuz. And the idea was that we were going to make a deal with them. We didn't make a deal for 2 months until sometime in June. And we did make a deal over the Straits of Hormuz. And even though their president signed it, several days later they violated it, and we went tit for tat in terms of violations, attacks, let's make a deal sort of thing. So here we are once again. So where I know where the president is coming from. If he doesn't get a deal that's satisfactory, and what you just described is not satisfactory to him whatsoever, we cannot leave Iran in control of the Straits of Hormuz in any way, shape, or form. That's a fact. We need to go back to pre-February 28th when we began the war. Free navigation, international waters, nobody owns any of it, and nobody can control any of it or influence it. That is the kind of deal we need to have coming out of here. But what are the Iranians really up to here? I mean, you got to look at this from their perspective. And I know people don't want to hear this, but from the Iranians' perspective, you and I know who these guys are. We've been talking about it for months, how diabolical, tyrannical they are. They looked at the April 7th as a major victory for them because why? They stopped the war. And their intention wasn't to get a deal. Their intention was to drag this out for as long as they possibly could. And now we're 4 months. They believe the reason why President Trump was willing to stop the war was because of oil and gas prices, and the president hasn't hidden that from us, and the implication of the midterms and the political concerns surrounding all of that. The Iranians believe the closer you get to that, the less likelihood that we'd ever go back to major combat operations. That's kind of in the back of their mind and driving them. So I think we may get a deal on the Straits. They'll drag out the nuclear deal as much as they possibly can. But even if they do get a Straits, Larry, a deal on the Straits, they proved to us. We had a deal with them the last time, June the 17th. Both presidents signed it. What did that deal say? We would remove our blockade, and they would have no interference, no fees, no organization, no anything associated with the Straits of Hormuz. And what happened? They violated it. So that, I think, is the path that Iran is on, and it's important to understand that. The path the president is on, good deal or no deal. That's kind of where he is. And if there's no deal, then I'm going back to major combat operations.
Right.
Only time will tell us the answer here.
Yes, sir.
We have to wait and see.
No, I get it. And he's looking at the options, and you know, he's the commander in chief. So that's what he has to do, and I think he does his statecraft very, very well. But the one concern I have, General Keane, I don't want, I mean, in a perfect world or whatever, no money for Iran, whether it's tolls or service fees, or we open up the naval blockade and let them sell oil again, or, you know, Scott Bessent, who has done such a great job as a wartime Treasury Secretary with all these sanctions. I don't want Iran to have any money because they'll use their money to rearm. That's my point. I mean, I want the open seas and the open navigation. That's naval lore, but I don't want them to have any. I want to starve them of financial resources, I mean, I'd like to see you and Scott Bessent do the negotiating for the United States of America on the military and the economy. They'll rearm. That's my biggest worry, sir.
Well, Larry, you and I have talked about this for months. Even if we got the perfect deal, met all of President Trump's objectives that he's trying to achieve here, the truth is we would have to help refinance them. That would be part of that deal. And as such, they would recover in time, and they would return to all of the objectives that they started out with 47 years ago. They would continue to be a menace in the region, not with this administration, but with subsequent administrations.
Right.
And that's why I've always been opposed to the deal, even if it was perfect.
Yes.
I think, let's assume there is a deal here. We cannot do what we did with the memorandum of understanding and remove sanctions immediately.
Right.
I totally agree with you.
Right.
No money, no funding, no relief of unfrozen assets, none of that. That has to be kicked down the road, and we have to absolutely see some fundamental change in Iran's behavior.
Yes, sir.
And it's not just those two things before we give them money. Restriction on ballistic missiles, no support for proxies are the other two major issues here as well. That's not on the table here for this construction. But before we give up money, they should be.
You have said this from day one. There has to be a change of behavior. And sure, it should be performance-based, but you just can't open the monetary spigots right away. You've been there. I'm telling you, I'd like to see you negotiate. You and Scott Bessent, you do the military stuff, and he'll do the economic stuff, and that'll be a tough front for Iran to deal with anyway. We're out of time. I'm daydreaming. General Jack Keane, thank you, sir, for your wisdom. As always, we appreciate it.